Welcome to Keyword Crypto. This is Michael. Scary red candles, part 2. Apparently, I don't know. I'm reading some stuff online that this was a coordinated attack, which I guess I feel like all dumps like that are relatively coordinated because it's kind of hard to move $1 trillion crypto like Bitcoin that easily. So I feel like a bunch of whales would have to do it all at once. So, I mean, don't sell dips. If you're going to sell green candles, don't sell red candles, right? I mean, just because that's how they get your money. They want you to sell low and then buy back high from them. So just, first off, if you're that freaked out, you're probably over leveraged, leverage wise and or spot wise. So, maybe reevaluate how much money you have in the market. And if it goes to zero, not, pseudo sarcastically, are you going to jump off a building? Because, this is dangerous shit. People do this. People kill themselves because they lose so much money in crypto. It doesn't happen that often, but it happens enough people's friends that you can find it on crypto. If you search for a few minutes, you can find somebody who has a friend who's killed themselves by losing money on crypto. So just, foresight. Don't risk more than you can play with. More than you can lose. Just, be smart. This is not about, like, if you invested in Amazon or Apple or Google at the beginning, you weren't a millionaire in 6 months. You were a millionaire 6 years later. So this is a long game. And, try not to get caught up, because a lot of these people are creating these shiny casinos like, all these meme coins like Shiba and whatever and SafeMoon and all these like crazy pump and dumps. They're doing it because it's the shiny new thing. And the shiny new thing is what attracts new people. I don't know if I've ever told this story. Maybe I have. If I have, then I apologize for repeating myself. And then in the nightclub industry in LA back, a long time ago, it was pretty common knowledge that a bar owner would own like 4 bars and just shut one down after it ran its course for about like 4 years, 5 years maybe, and it wasn't cool anymore. And they would just move the staff over to a new building with a slightly different decor, and everything was exactly the same, but for the customers, and they would change the name, but for the customers, it was a brand new bar. And it was literally everything was exactly the same. Same staff, same DJs, same this, literally everything was exactly the same. So they did this because they know how susceptible people are to FOMO, and they want to be on the cool new thing. So just catch yourself. Are you excited about this new project because the fundamentals are amazing? Are you excited about this project because you think you can make a quick $1 million in a month? And, chances are you're not going to make a cool $1 million in a month. Those are the chances. Those are the odds. And even if you do, there's the great thing that people are talking about online. It's like that one guy who made like a couple $1 million or something like that or $400,000 on SafeMoon or something like that. But the liquidity was like almost zero, so he couldn't actually sell it. So you gotta like question short-term gains versus long-term gains, and then tax implications and all that. So if you're an American, just, be smart. Think about stuff. The people on Wall Street and, all these super whales aren't whales because they made all their money in 5 minutes. They made their money over years. So just don't do crazy stuff if you can stop yourself. So I'm going to do like a lot of house cleaning. Lots of stuff that I wanted to talk about in the past like month that I've just kind of the Nano interview and then Mr. G interview. Everything kind of got pushed to the side. So there's a few things I want to address. Somebody was asking what impermanent loss is. So I'm not sure if people understand what that is or if they don't. Quick rundown. So on a decentralized exchange, the only what we do is we create a liquidity pair, which I have so if I have $2,000, I put $1,000 in ETH and $1,000 in, let's just say, USDC, and I create a pair that pair is now worth $2,000, and people kind of trade back and forth, and they're using this to be able to trade from USDC to ETH and back, and a bunch of people make all these different pairs to make it easy, because that's how decentralized exchanges work, essentially. I'm not 100% sure why they just don't do individual pools, but that's beyond my skill set as a developer. So impermanent loss is if ETH goes, let's just say ETH is $2,000 and ETH goes to $4,000. Well, the half of your pair that was $2,000, which is 1,000 ETH and 1,000 USDC, that pair is now the weight is different because your 0.5 ETH or whatever that used to be worth $1,000 is now worth $1,500. Sorry, $2,000. But your USDC at $1,000 is still the same, so it has to rebalance itself. So it sells some ETH off for USDC, puts it in the USDC side to make it balance out again. So now you have less ETH and more USDC to make that balance the same. And it's called impermanent losses because if it goes down, if ETH were to go down, you would start selling some USDC over to the ETH side to make it balance out again. So it's not permanent until you sell, just like a loss. Like your losses aren't permanent until you actually sell them. So that's impermanent loss. So that's the new update on Uniswap version 3 addresses this by, instead of just creating one liquidity pair for ETH USDC, and if ETH is like $1,000 and goes to $10,000, you're just totally screwed and you lose all this ETH to balance out onto the USDC side. What Hayden did was, Hayden's the guy who created Uniswap. What Hayden does is you can set it for brackets. You can say like, okay, I want to create an ETH USDC pair from, ETH $1,500 to $1,600. And so you're only making profits when ETH is between those two because that's when your pair is actually getting used. And as soon as it goes above that $1,600, your pair shuts off. So you stop losing any money to impermanent loss. It's just kind of sitting there. It's not collecting interest. It's not making any gains, but you're also not losing any money. So you could create like 50 different brackets from like 1,000 to 1,100, and then 1,100 to 1,200, and 12. You just do a bunch of different ones, and so make money every time it hits one of those one of those brackets. You can be making not a bunch of money, but money from trades. So like the small percent that you get when you supply liquidity to a decentralized exchange. So that's good. You don't lose money to impermanent loss. So if that's something you're ever thinking about, Uniswap version 3 kind of fixed the dangers of that. But if you were doing something like USDC to USDT, you wouldn't really have to worry about it because those two don't really change, except for yesterday when BUSD was like 90 cents or something like that. It was crazy how low it was. Another thing I wanted to talk about is, I don't know if you've been noticing lately, with all the negative press, I hate the word FUD, but all the negative press Bitcoin has been getting for the last month about energy use, which if you've been in crypto, if you've listened to this show, we've been talking about this for years. It uses a lot of energy, and most of it is dirty energy. Somebody once said to me, like, well, do you hate all proof of work? And no, of course not. I don't hate all proof. I don't hate proof of work, period. I hate wasted energy use. That's it. I just don't like, I don't like big carbon footprints. If you have a small carbon footprint and you're doing proof of work, great. I think like Digibyte is pretty sure it's proof of work. It has a pretty small carbon footprint, but it's also not really being used by that many people. So that might change. It might have a huge carbon footprint if it hit Bitcoin size. So we just don't know. That's the danger of some of these smaller cryptos, is that a lot of them are great in theory, but until they actually start getting used, that was my complaint about Nano. And when I was like really trying to push the community, is like, hey, it's, you can talk a lot of game, but like until it actually starts getting massive usage, you're not going to really know. And at one point, like 3 or 4 weeks ago, it hit, $4 billion of trading in a day and a half. And Bitcoin people were scoffing at that, but that's some serious that's some serious trading. It's some serious volume. For a cryptocurrency that was ranked 100 at the time. So you want that if you want that as much as possible on your cryptocurrency, not only because it's going to boost the price a little bit, but also because it's going to show you how viable long-term the crypto is. So you want people to attack it, you want people to use it, you just want to see how it holds up to usage and attacks. So those two things are really important. Usage and attacks. And so like what we saw, so do I hate all proof of work? No. And another question was like, well, why do you rail against Bitcoin, but you don't rail against Ethereum? I mean, I do rail against Ethereum. I think, the fees are outrageous, but for the last 4 years, so 4 years ago, 2017, 2018, that winter, Bitcoin fees hit $50, and trades could take, or sending Bitcoin to one wallet to the next could take like up to a day or two. It was so long. And at that point, people were like, this is completely unreliable. Like you can't, not unreliable in the sense of like it's not going to eventually go through. It could potentially not go through now that we have miners censoring transactions. But it would still eventually get there, hopefully, if your transaction wasn't censored. But it was unreliable in the sense of like you can't rely on it on a day-to-day basis for anything. Someone's like, hey, send me some Bitcoin. I don't care if it takes 3 weeks. Great, I'll set it at 2 pennies, the transaction. And that's great, but that's not most people. I think those people are few and far between who can, get paid by their boss in Bitcoin and not need it for 2 or 3 weeks. So when that happened in 2017, 2018, Bitcoin was like, so I think their logic was, energy usage wasn't that big a deal back then yet. So they were trying to fix the fees. And that was it. They're like, if we can just fix the fees, that's the only problem. Well, that's not the only problem. The problem is, length of time in between. So they came up with Taproot, which is trying to make things more private and cheaper and a little bit faster. So kind of like a better version of SegWit. And that's great to focus on that, but it wasn't going to solve the major underlying problems. That's kind of a Band-Aid. It's kind of like layer 2 is a Band-Aid for layer 1. You're kind of admitting defeat, saying layer 1 is more or less useless, and we need to create a layer 2 for people to actually use, because layer 1's unusable by the masses. So Bitcoin made no effort to do that, to fix layer 1 in the sense of handling throughput. So Taproot makes things a little bit faster, so I've read, if it works. Fingers crossed for the people who are spending a lot of time trying to make it work. Failure is good because people can learn from failure just as much as they can learn from success. But, you hate to see people bust their ass and fail. Lightning Network is a perfect example. I feel bad for those people because they've worked so hard for like 4 or 5 years now, and it's always been 18 months away, and it's still only get like 80% success rate, which sucks. Part of me is like, well, those are big brain people. They should be using their brain on something else. But then it goes back to the thing, well, failure is good because you can see what doesn't work. So it can help you figure out what does work. So Bitcoin doubled down and went all in on proof of work. And they decided that the first layer 2 solution that seemed feasible would be the only one that they would all work on. So there was a guy who's working on Lightning Network who was also creating an alternative to Lightning Network, and they were both trying to solve it at the same exact time. And I read an interview by him with him in it, and or maybe it was a podcast or something. And the gist that I got was, because Lightning Network came to market first, and it not came to market, but like produced their white paper first, even though he had spent a ton of time on his solution, he just said, oh, that seems like it's going to work, and he just dropped his and then went all in on helping them. So Lightning Network has 0 competitors in a decentralized space. Like Blockstream has a centralized version, and some other middlemen, centralized banker type solutions. I mean, that's what kind of Blockstream is. It's a centralized middleman that charges. So it's literally a bank that everybody in Bitcoin says they hate, and yet they keep supporting banks. So while they were doing that, Ethereum had a vision and said, we're going to do layer 2, and it's going to be a free-for-all. There is no one layer 2 solution. Everybody can do whatever they want, and if you all succeed, then we have a bunch of layer 2s, and then we'll figure out how to bridge them all. So that was their first way of handling it, and the second way of handling it was to fix layer 1. Like, okay, we're going to move to proof of stake. They were working on sharding and Casper and I mean they're like, there's no wrong answer. We're going to try to solve this. So over the last 4 years, they've been moving to proof of stake, slowly, methodically. People, everyone's pissed off that it's taking too long, but this is a $100 billion project now. You don't want to just move over and have it stop working. So it's good. Take your time. Fees suck. NFT fees suck, but the alternative is everything just kind of collapsing around it. And now that we have layer 2 solutions that are working, and layer 2 solutions aren't working yet. I think Optimism and Arbitrum are the layer 2 solutions, and XDAI and Polygon Matic are side chains, like pseudo trusted side chains. But Optimism is slowly coming out, and Arbitrum's like right around the corner. So seems like layer 2 is going to be a plausible solution. And then once Ethereum, if and when it moves to proof of stake, great. If that works, and then we have layer 2 solutions on top of that, everything's going to be a lot smoother and cheaper, and that's good for the community. So they were working hard to try to solve a problem of proof of work and energy usage. Like, they had the foresight, and they also got completely ground to a halt with CryptoKitties. So they experienced their own, winter of 2018, like Bitcoin did. But they got everybody together and said, hey, this is what we want to achieve. And they got all the big brains together, and they said, everybody go do your thing. And then you have Digibyte, who tries something. They've got their proof of work. You've got Doge that tries something. They got proof of work. You have Monero, who, works to be ASIC resistant. So it's like you have people who understand the problem and understand that level of energy usage and that level of required hash rate leads to centralization and an excessive amount of energy used. And that's not good. Do I hate all proof of work? No. Do I think proof of work is going to be around in 20 years? I just don't think so. I think we're seeing, I feel like the free market is speaking, and the free market says we want cleaner energy cryptos. We want we want to be able to use crypto without feeling like we're using a bunch of coal. And when people attacked NFTs for using too much energy, the community reached out and said, hey, look, we're not Bitcoin. This is how much energy we use. This is how much energy we'll use if proof of stake, which hopefully is going to go like, the switch is going to flip in the next 6 months to a year. It's going to use 99.9% less energy or something like that. We have layer 2 solutions. We have these are all the things we're doing to try to address this problem. This is not a new problem. We've been aware of this. And I think, and then, they slowly started reaching out to journalists and major news organizations and started to get the word out. Like, this is why. And if you read mainstream media, you start to see it more and more. Like, oh, okay, they're talking about different things. They're talking about other projects, and they're talking about how Ethereum is trying to solve the problem. And that's just it. They're trying to solve the problem. They accept that the problem exists, and they're trying to solve the problem. And then you come to Bitcoin, and their logic is, we're going to deny the problem exists, and we're going to try to convince you that it's all in your head, that it's not real. And the term for that is gaslighting. And it's the technique that Big Oil did since the 70s, since the 1970s. They came out with their own study that showed that global warming was real and it was man-made. And that they were one of the biggest emitters of carbon on the planet. And instead of releasing that to the public, they went on a campaign for the next 30 years of paying scientists who were willing to lie. And they started creating fake studies. And then it finally came out, and the information came out, and those papers those studies that they paid for in the 70s, the real ones, came to light. And so that's why a lot of states have been trying to sue them for lying and causing tons of pollution, causing tons of harm, causing tons of asthma in children. They tried to gaslight. They were successful in gaslighting people for about 30 years. And then the truth came out. And then big tobacco. Big tobacco has had studies for a while that says smoking's terrible for you. We know inherently, inhaling smoke can kill you. People who die in fires, they rarely die from catching on fire, right? Most people die of smoke inhalation, and then maybe they catch on fire afterwards, but they're usually dead or completely blacked out because of smoke inhalation. And people who die later on, usually don't die right away, they get out, but they were in there so long breathing so much smoke, they can die later on of smoke inhalation. We know smoke is bad. We know it kills people from breathing it. It's dangerous. So they, back when they were having commercials that said doctors were saying it was totally fine for you. I mean, these were doctors that didn't have any information. They weren't, we weren't doing studies on it. They were just pretty much told, this is what it does. This is how it's good for you. They used to they would have commercials back when I was a kid, not when I was a kid, but like my mom was a kid, saying smoking is good for you. That was it. So they found information that it was bad for people, for smokers, and it was bad for non-smokers. And they found out that nicotine was addictive. And they went in front of Congress in the 90s and stood up in front of them and said, nicotine is not addictive. Just flat out lied. Even though records ended up coming out down, later on that they actually did know that nicotine was addictive. So how does this relate to Bitcoin? So Bitcoiners, there's this whole thing. It's like everyone's like going, oh, read Nick Carter stuff, read Nick Carter stuff, read Nick Carter stuff. Okay, so I've read pretty much everything that Nick Carter's read. It's garbage. And it's fine if you're in the choir, because he's just preaching to the choir, and he's not a scientist. He works, he's a partner at a hedge fund company, in essence. He invests in Bitcoin companies. So he has a vested interest in making sure Bitcoin succeeds. And I'm sure he'll lose a ton of money if Bitcoin goes to zero. He keeps on quoting a study from like Coin Loan, I think, or something like that. And their study is garbage. It's not real. It's a bunch of coulds and maybes and could haves, and then there's this great stat that they keep throwing around saying 70% of miners use clean energy. That's how you know someone's lying to you. Is you get, okay, great, show me the stats. And they can't show you the stats. But then they show you something that shows that 70% of miners are using some form of clean energy. Meaning they could be using 99% coal and 1% clean energy, and they're going to get thrown in the pile of miners that use clean energy. This is called a misdirect. It's called a lie. It's called it's gaslighting, because it's not actually true. It's a meaningless stat. It doesn't actually hold up under scrutiny. Because the reality is about 30 to 35% of mining uses clean energy. Not miners, the actual mining of Bitcoin. And this is the most reliable data we have from Cambridge so far. Nobody in Bitcoin has really been able to dispute it. They've tried to spin it with that 70% number, but they can't actually dispute it because they don't have any data. And every time someone says, hey, we should, and I've said it on Twitter a bunch of times, and now Kevin, whatever his name is, Leary or what, I forget his name, the guy from Shark Tank, even he said it. He's like, hey, you should start telling us miners should start telling us where they get their energy from. That'll make it, and then we can have watchdogs go in and check it and fact check it. And then people can buy their Bitcoin from the miners that they want to buy it from, like a free market system. Bitcoiners hate that. They do not want that to happen because they know that the majority of mining comes from dirty energy. And so they gaslight and they attack and they attack and they gaslight. And it's just misdirect and lie. You got to be really careful when someone says like, oh, read Nick Carter stuff. The very top of Nick Carter articles doesn't say article by Nick. It says the name of his title and then in big yellow letters, opinion. He is not giving you factual information. He is giving you his opinion. And his opinion is biased because he works in the space and makes his living from Bitcoin. So he does not want Bitcoin to fold. You got to learn how to read information, check all the links. If someone provides links, follow the links. Because a lot of times Nick will hyperlink something, and then when I would read it, it completely contradicts everything Nick just said. Except for one little line that he cherry-picked out of that, which confirmed his bias, even though the rest of it said he's absolutely wrong. So the thing that really kind of pushed me over the edge was I use a ledger and I wanted to try Trezor. So I bought the Trezor, downloaded the app on my computer, opened it up. There's a big link on the bottom. It says, something about Bitcoin. So I click on it, and it's an article. It's an opinion piece by somebody who works at Trezor that pretty much just copy-pasted Nick Carter's latest article about Bitcoin, claiming that Bitcoin energy, and they don't say Bitcoin doesn't use energy. They never say that. They always say Bitcoin energy usage isn't the real problem. Let me tell you what the real problem is. Right? So they don't actually ever dispute that Bitcoin is wasting a ton of energy. And the carbon footprint is enormous. The size of Argentina, the size of Sweden, the size, serious countries. And that's only with $1 trillion market cap. So imagine if it hit gold, 10 trillion. I mean, let's say the carbon footprint just went up 3x as opposed to 10x. That's crazy. That's a lot of energy. And the planet's use of green energy is not accelerating at that rate. So they'll try to gaslight again and say, oh, this is actually good for clean energy. It'll make people create clean energy. Notice they're not saying they'll create clean energy. They're putting it off on everyone else. And this is my problem with Bitcoin. And I've said this in past episodes. There's two types of people. There's people who see the problem and say, I'm going to let other people fix it. And I'm going to keep making money off that problem until somebody else fixes it, because I don't want to stop making my money off of it. And there's people who say, here's the problem, I'm going to fix that problem. And the people who don't want to fix it are making a ton of money, and then they slowly disappear. And the people who see the problem and actually want to fix it, they're the next Google, they're the next Apple, they're the next Amazon. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for people who want to solve the problem. I'm looking for people who want to first admit the problem exists. So I'm looking at this article on that Trezor linked me to, and it's just gaslighting its user base, its customers, and it's trying to pick a winner. Because Trezor offers, you could put a bunch of different cryptos on there, but for whatever reason, they think that Bitcoin is the answer. So they put out this article lying to their customers. I'm not going to say they're lying because I don't know what's in their head. Either, there's two options. Either they believe what they're saying, which makes them fucking idiots, or they know it's not true and they're lying to their customers. Now, if they know it's not true and they're lying to their customers, I don't want to give them my money. Because I don't want to support a company that lies to its customers. And if they're too stupid to understand that what they're saying is wrong, then why would I trust all my money, all my crypto, with a company that doesn't understand that what they're saying is just batshit crazy? I equated it to somebody. I was talking with Sabotage Beats on Twitter. And he goes, "Oh, I just bought a Twitter. I use Trezor. I like it." I'm like, "Okay, cool." But trusting them with your money is like trusting somebody who tells you the earth is flat and then wants to handle all your finances. Like, obviously they don't understand science or believe in science if they think the earth is flat, and then they want you to trust them with your money. Fuck no. That's idiotic. Why on earth would I do that? And then Voyager. So I've used Voyager, I've recommended Voyager, I've referred people to Voyager, which is, I think it's just in the US right now, but it's a phone app, kind of like Coinbase, really simple. No, it's basic buy sell. Like no limit orders, anything like that. It's just market rate. They charge, they inflate the price and take the difference. That's how they make their fees. And they offer interest if you have enough of whatever in there. You can pull it out whenever you want. You don't have to. It's not staking. You don't have to So it's great for somebody like my mom. So I've referred a lot of older boomers to this app because it's so easy to use, and they make some interest on their crypto. And there's no way they're going to figure out how to use Ava or Curve. So in my mind, this is the next best thing. My buddy who I referred him to Voyager, sends me an article from him that says, "Oh, Voyager's like really pro Bitcoin," and it's literally a copy and paste of Nick's article. And I'm just like, what the fuck, man? Another crypto company, doubling down on Bitcoin when they offer 50 other cryptocurrencies that you can buy. They're trying to pick a winner and gaslight their customers with these lies. And now I can't, in good conscience, refer people to Voyager. Because in my mind, if somebody believes that's true, then they're A, either a complete fucking moron that I don't want to trust them with my money, or B, know it's bullshit and are lying to me. And I don't want to trust them with my money. So Voyager and Trezor, I do not recommend them because they're either too stupid to handle your money or they're liars and you shouldn't trust them with your money. And then lo and behold, yesterday during all the red candles, Voyager went down. So for me, that was kind of kismet. It's a gentle reminder from the universe. Hey, don't support this company. They're trash. Okay. Chia network, Chia blockchain, Chia whatever. I tested this out for a month, roughly. And I bought an 8 terabyte hard drive as the main storage, and then they suggest like a 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte SSD or NVMe. Are those the right letters? I'm blanking on it. Just a very, very fast hard drive as the temporary. So that processes it and then it stores it on the big hard drive. So I ran it for almost a month, and after I got to 22 plots, so you create a plot and then you mine that, and then you farm that plot. And you're not doing anything with this energy, you're just burning energy. So it's not a ton of energy, but it's also energy that your computer is expending and processing power that it's just like throwing it away. It's like flaring gas at the end. It's just like wasted processing power. So I tested it out, got to like 20 some plus plots, and then it just started like I couldn't plant any more plots. I still had like 4 terabytes of storage left, but normally it would take like 4 or 5 hours to plant one plot. It was taking like 48 hours, and I was still like only at 3%. So like, okay, something's wrong. And then, but right before that, every time I'd add a plot, it was the time to actually mine one Chia, or like one reward. The average started off as like a year, then it got down to 5 months, then 4 months, then 1 month. And then once I hit 1 month, it just stayed there. It's like, oh, estimated time to win a block reward, 1 month. Started to hit the 20s, and then it started to slow down, and then it started saying 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. And I was like, okay, I'm creating more plots, and I'm going backwards in time. It's getting longer and longer, the chance of me getting a block reward. That was using an 8 terabyte hard drive, a $200 8 terabyte hard drive, and $150 1 terabyte SSD drive. The average American prior to coronavirus didn't have $400 in their bank account for an emergency. Chia is obviously not going to work, because if using $350, which most Americans don't have, and the chance to mine a block was getting further and further away with those two devices, it's not feasible. Not to mention, if there's a run on these hard drives, the hard drives are just going to start jacking up in price. And then when they become too old, people are just going to throw them away, like people do right now with the regular hard drives. So the amount of e-waste we'd be getting from it, plus the shortage of hard drives. Now, the argument that Bitcoiners make is, well, it's creating hard money. So Chia could say, well, it's creating hard money. Okay. Maybe. You hope it's going to be hard money, right? Bitcoin hopes it's going to be the cryptocurrency of the future, but we're not going to stop getting block rewards for another 120 years, 130 years, 20 or 100, I forget, 120 years or 130 years. So that means that we're going to have to wait over 100 years to even figure out what's going to happen once the rewards stop. That just seems mind-bogglingly dumb to me. Okay, I'm going to get back away from crypto, or from Bitcoin. So Bitcoin doesn't have, coming back to Bitcoin for a second. Bitcoin doesn't have foresight, right? The cryptocurrency space moves at the speed of lightning, constantly changing. New projects are coming and going. Obviously, energy is a problem, and it can't adapt, and it's choosing not to adapt. It's just choosing to put its head in the sand and hope that somebody else will fix the problem for them. And we're not even going to know if it's going to work without rewards for another 120 years. That's not good foresight if you can't update it and change it that easily. So Chia, same thing. Zero foresight. How they didn't see that there would be a run on storage that is a finite thing. Storage is going to be finite. Like right now, because of coronavirus, we have a shortage of semiconductors and chips. Like, so all the new cars have these chips in them, and we don't have enough. And so cars are just kind of like, we can't make cars fast enough right now. So finite resources. So if anything happens, if you have your entire monetary system built on the back of external hard drives and something happens and there's a shortage, then all of a sudden like your money supply is just like, oh, okay, yeah, we don't, So Bitcoiners complain about pre-mine, but honestly, pre-mine is the smartest way to go because it's there, it's done. And then the value is the value. And the value is just free market value at that point. It's not about future rewards or past rewards or this or that. It's just about it's like there's 1,000 Beanie Babies out there right now, and the market is going to set the price. And if you know there's not going to be more than 1,000 of those Beanie Babies ever made because they were already made, that's it. And people can set the price, and people can pay what they want for it, and they can decide if it has value or not. So I'm a big fan, and Banano did this, and Nano did a form of this, and most tokens on most ERC20 tokens on Ethereum did this. Pre-mines. Like I like the idea of just you create a total, whether you have somebody do proof of work beforehand, like so Nano did that with CAPTCHAs. They just had people just do a bunch of CAPTCHAs, and then that was how much was going to be created. They said do CAPTCHAs for however long, a year or 6 months or whatever, and then once you're done, that's the total that we're going to have, and that's it. Banano did something different. They just cloned it and created a number, and then they just do giveaways. And they say this is how much we're going to keep for the development team, like 5% or whatever, which I think is fair because they're the ones doing all the work, and we're going to give all the rest away. We're going to give it away. They're not even selling. So Banano is not selling any of the crypto that they give away. They're giving it away. And you can do stuff like, so what I do is I do protein folding at home, and I use processing power from my computer, and it just folds in the background. And it helps cure diseases, cure cancer, cure this, cure that. It's like whatever doctors and scientists are working on at the time, and they need some extra processing power to solve these equations. My computer is helping do that. And I get a small amount of Banano. They tell Banano, hey, so I create an account that connects Banano to that. And they say, hey, he used this much processing power. And then Banano sends me, like 10 Banano or something like that, which is like 10 cents, 20 cents. Cool, great. I don't really care about the money. But if Banano were to ever like become a top 10 coin, all of a sudden that Banano's worth something. And I actually did something of value to earn it. The energy I used actually went to something beneficial for the world. It helped cure something, hopefully. So that got me thinking, the creation of money can't be the benefit. If that's all you have, if that's all you're giving to the world, then you failed. Because if your project goes to zero, not only did you not help the world, but your project failed. So if Banano goes to zero and all the money I earned by helping to cure diseases is worthless, at least I did something with that energy, with the processing power of my computer. I helped make the world a better place. I think we're at a point now where as more and more people start coming into the space, they're going to start questioning these things. What benefit are you giving to the planet? And if the only answer you can reply with is, well, hard money is the benefit, you're a fucking joke, man. Come on. That is not a benefit to anybody, especially when it doesn't work. It's not hard money. You can claim it's a store of value, but store value for who? Because if 95% of the planet can't afford the transaction fee to buy it, then it's obviously not a store of value. If a poor person who wants to put $100 in Bitcoin and move it off of an exchange, they buy it on the exchange, let's say they pay 1% fee or 0.05 or 0.5% transaction fee. And then they lose, 0.001 or whatever Bitcoin to send it off an exchange. And then once it's on the exchange, they're at the whims of miners. So if they need that and they have to send it back to the exchange, say that's another $20. So their $100 investment, they've already lost, 30 to 40% just right off the bat. And so that's a tax. That's a tax on your Bitcoin. And realize that tax, and I've said this in other episodes too, that tax isn't going back to your community. So like when I pay taxes, it goes to my city, my state, and my country. 100% of it stays within my country. Now we can debate what the government does and sends money out, blah, blah. That's beside the point. The basic structure of taxes go to my city, my state, my country. Bitcoin taxes go to rich people in other countries. They're not going to my local government. They're not going to my community. None of that money that gets sucked out of my community, that gets sucked out of my pocket, that tax, I'm getting taxed and all of it's going outside, away. Just away. It's not benefiting me in any way in the future. And that's bad, especially if you're a poor country. You got to ask yourself, is your cryptocurrency helping people or is it making things worse for them? And is the creation of it helping people or is it making it worse for them? So if you want Wall Street and you want mass adoption, these are the things that the masses think about. There's a reason apartheid ended in South Africa because people were like, this is fucking awful for it to be happening in the 80s and the 90s. This is ridiculous. We don't want this. So they just pulled all financial support for South Africa. Said, look, if you want to have apartheid, great. We're not going to sell you anything and we're not going to buy anything from you. And it eventually worked. And clean energy, right? The planet is getting more conscious about clean energy. More electric cars, more energy products that are Energy Star, that's certified Energy Star, or whatever. Like we're slowly, light bulbs are moving from halogen to LED. First it was compact fluorescent, and then it was LED, and it's like evolution. Every single product is using less energy, less energy, less energy, less energy. And on top of that, we're creating clean energy. So it's a slow, gradual shift. And that happened because people, the free market, they were pissed off. They didn't like their kids getting sick. The free market did this. If you don't like people complaining about energy that Bitcoin uses, well, then don't expect people to buy your product. And Bitcoin is a product. And if you don't like that, then don't participate in the free market. But if you want to participate in the free market and have adoption and people build on it, then you have to listen to your customers. And when they say, we're not happy with how much energy usage, and you say, that's not true, it's not real. Most people are smart. They're going to figure it out. Oh, no, it is true. And Ethereum's working to fix that. Or Nano's working to fix that. Or Banano's working to fix that. Or Digibyte or Monero or whoever's working to fix that. And I'm just going to use that instead. And Bitcoiners will call them stupid, or they won't. And eventually flippenings will happen. Because that's just how every economy of scale has worked. Everything gets flipped eventually. So those are my thoughts. That's why I'm pro Ethereum and not pro Bitcoin. That's why I don't think Chia is going to work. That's why I don't recommend Voyager or Trezor. And that's what impermanent loss is. And don't buy more crypto than you can afford to lose. And if you're feeling at the end of your rope because you lost money and you sold the bottom because you were scared, make sure to call somebody. You're not alone. People care about you. It's just money. You can always make money back. But if you do something drastic, that's forever. So please, please, please talk to somebody if you're feeling frustrated or upset or you know what I mean. Okay. I'm going to talk to somebody who made NFTs in a couple weeks that I absolutely love. I bought one and it's like on the rarity score, it's like at the very, very bottom, but I still love it. It's like my favorite one. So talk to them. And I don't know if you got somebody you want me to talk to, reach out to me and I will do what I can. All right. Thanks for listening and I'll talk to you next time.